Welcome to Hannity. And Joe Biden is still president for a few more weeks, but you, the American people, are ready, obviously, to move on. According to a new Reuters poll, Biden now has an approval rating of only 38%. Joe will now spend most of the next month sleeping, hopefully, while his staff is working overtime to sabotage the incoming Trump White House. And meanwhile, his vice president is fresh off a humiliating defeat, desperately trying to cling to relevance while pretending to be joyful. It was such a joyful campaign. You're a Nazi. You're a racist. You're a fascist. Take a look.
The true test of our commitment is whether, in the face of an obstacle, do we throw up our hands or do we roll up our sleeves? And as we approach, and I ask you to remember the context in which you exist. Yeah, I did that.
I got to admit, I kind of miss the giggling vice president. I do. I miss it. The giggles are back. The word salads are back. The passage of time is next. It is pretty clear to pretty much everyone now that the adults were not in charge over the last 4 years. Instead, we got a blend of incompetence, corruption, far-left radicalism mixed with nothing but a steady stream of outright lies. And breaking today, 14 suspected gang members with possible links to that notorious Tren de Aragua gang. Well, they were detained in Aurora, Colorado. Remember that during the campaign? They're accused of invading a local apartment complex where they kidnapped, brutally tortured their victims. Now, you might recall that President Trump, Vice President-to-be Vance, and other Republicans, they have been sounding the alarm on this issue for months, warning violent, illegal immigrant gangs were wreaking havoc on apartment complexes in Colorado and across the country. You know, these gang members poured across Joe Biden, Kamala Harris's wide-open southern border. So, of course, unvetted as they are, top Democrats, their friends in the legacy media mob, they told us that it was nothing to worry about. You might recall. Take a look.
President Trump was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be.
Just a mere handful. I mean, what's a handful of apartment complexes on top of the known terrorists that they've allowed into the country, the murderers, the rapists, the cartel members, the gang members, people murdering, raping American citizens, people guilty of other violent crimes against members of our country. You know, ultimately, this is why so many Americans turned against the Democratic Party. They created this crisis, then told you that their suffering wasn't real or significant, and then lied and said the border was secure and the border was closed. And now, for one last twist of the knife, the Biden administration is practically giving away the border wall materials, pennies on the dollar, only out of spite to slow Donald Trump's ability to keep his promise to secure the border. That means you will pay for more border wall materials, and you'll pay a lot more. So really, they're hurting us. These Democrats breathlessly smearing Donald Trump for years, all while claiming to be so virtuous, protectors of democracy and the rule of law. They embarked on one witch hunt after another. It's been 9 long years. Get Trump, get Trump, get Trump, and exclaimed that no one's above the law. And then Biden pardoned his own son, Hunter, and more to come, by the way, for an 11-year crime spree, letting him off the hook for gun charges, tax charges, and so much more. And Joe is only getting started. How many other Bidens will be pardoned by the time this is all said and done? Will Joe pardon himself, these preemptive pardons? Remember, he granted clemency to a doctor who diluted chemotherapy drugs, along with a woman who stole $4 million from the USDA program to feed poor children, and a government official who stole $53 million in tax revenue in a small Illinois town of, 15,000? And perhaps worst of all, Biden also commuted the sentence of the notorious Kids for Cash judge. That's the guy that was taking kickbacks. How nice of him. From a private, for-profit detention center in exchange for locking up kids at their facility. All told, 4,000 juvenile convictions were thrown out. But that's not all. Last month, Biden commuted the sentences of 2 Chinese spies and a relative of a high-ranking official from China's Communist Party convicted of child pornography charges. I wonder if this has to do with the WhatsApp message to the head of the energy conglomerate in China, CEFC. I'm sitting here with my father, and between everyone he knows and my ability to hold a grudge, you're going to regret not giving us the money, and voila. Days later, millions of dollars went into one of those James Comer described bank accounts of Hunter Biden. And in yet another nod to China, Biden signed a 5-year science pact with the Communist Chinese, despite the COVID disaster and near constant intellectual property theft, unfair trade practices. I'm pretty certain Trump will deal with all of this in short order. Donald Trump is not going to abide by what Joe Biden just signed. And maybe, just maybe, Joe Biden is not the good, honest, decent statesman that he's been claiming to be, because it appears to be that way, with Biden on his way out. The international community, they frankly are breathing a sigh of relief. World leaders lining up to meet with Donald Trump. He has already spent time with several presidents, prime ministers from Europe. Argentina's president flew to Florida to meet with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So did the wife of the late Japanese prime minister. He was assassinated, you may recall, back in 2022. And Canada's Prime Minister, Little Justin, he also paid Trump a visit at Mar-a-Lago. But Little Justin, well, he may not be in leadership for much longer. Yeah, the far-left prime minister is fighting off votes of no confidence as we speak after facing his own economic and immigration crisis. Now, as per usual, Trump is ready, willing to meet and talk to anybody. We could barely get Joe to speak, and when he did, it was a disaster and an embarrassment. Unlike Biden and Harris, Donald Trump is well-versed. He's capable. He did an impromptu, nearly hour-and-a-half presser yesterday. And as one MSDNC host pointed out, he is accessible. Just ask Joe Amica also. Take a look.
I called him and said, I want an interview with you. Obviously, he said no. But my point is, I was able to get to him by dialing his phone. Right. Now, that might be completely and you're like, I can't believe people know this guy's phone number. Yeah. But the reverse of that, if I were to want to connect with VP Harris or President Biden, there's 50 people between me and that. I could write a note that maybe could get to somebody, then through Pony Express and a pigeon, something might end up in a mailbox near them. Yeah. And I called DJT to say, yo, can I have an interview?
And he
told
answered.
Me to go myself, but I still was able to connect with him.
By the way, very nice of Donald Trump. Very nice to take her call. Very nice to meet with Joe Amica. However, I would gently remind the president, not that he's going to listen to me, that they hate him. They're the ones that spread and peddle the lies and conspiracy theories about him. They're the ones that wanted him in jail. They're the ones that called him a fascist and racist and every other name in the book. And you know what? Maybe they're not your friends, and you just have to, come to a reckoning to that truth. But the days of secrecy, dishonesty, lack of availability, and lack of transparency, they are over. From the border to crime to the economy to spy balloons and little drones flying over our head, Trump is upfront about his plans, about his agenda. And as for that current drone scandal now brewing nationwide, on January 20th, 2025, the gaslighting in this country will come to an end. Our federal government is now abusing power like never before. But in 34 short days, Donald Trump will bring about the return of a basic principle. Our federal government cannot abuse power like this ever again. In 24 days, Trump will bring about a return of a basic American principle. Our government will once again be by the people, for the people, of the people, and the all-powerful bureaucratic state is facing a reckoning. We will have a return to constitutional order. What did our framers and our founders, what did they want more than anything? They wanted something called limited government, greater freedom, and hopefully we can return to that. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.